This video is brought to you by soccerpro.com. Be sure to visit soccerpro.com for all the latest soccer gear at everyday low prices with no membership fees. Don't forget to use coupon code SR4U at checkout for $10 off a $75 purchase, plus free shipping within the US. Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a comparison video between the top 3 speed boots on the market, in terms of popularity at least, and that is the Nike Mercurial Vapor 8, the Adidas F50 adizero miCoach, and the Puma evoSPEED 1. Obviously I have all the synthetic versions here, simply because I felt it was a better comparison to compare all the synthetics, also considering that the Vapor only comes in synthetic, not leather. So I'm comparing all the synthetics. If you want more information on the leather version of either the adizero or the evoSPEED, I'll leave annotations in the top left corner with more info. There'll also be links in the description to the review pages for those, so go ahead and check those out if you are interested. For the meantime, we'll deal with the synthetics. As far as sizing goes on all 3 of these shoes, the Mercurial and the evoSPEED do tend to fit true to size. Although they fit very differently from each other, they do fit true to size, where the synthetic model of the adizero does seem to fit a little bit small. So where I would normally wear a size 9, I wore a size 9.5 in the adizero. So definitely keep that in mind if you are looking at the synthetic model of the adizero. The leather model, again, fits a little bit differently as well. As far as width goes, a lot of you guys give me all kinds of questions on, I have wide feet, I have narrow feet, what do you suggest? If I wanted to categorize these two as far as narrowest to widest, the widest is definitely going to be the adizero. It definitely has the widest cut in the midfoot. You see there's quite a bit of material from the bottom of the midfoot all the way around the top. So there's plenty of room, wiggle room for your foot to fit in there, especially if you do have a wider, even flatter foot. This is really not going to give you too many issues. You're also going to notice that the toe box is significantly larger on the adizero than it is on the other two. Much higher, a little bit wider, has a slightly pointy toe. But as far as the amount of width that you're going to get in the forefoot as well as the midfoot, the adizero is definitely going to provide that. The second widest shoe is going to be the evoSPEED. I wouldn't categorize this as a wide shoe, but it does have a wide-ish fit to it. If you do have too wide of a foot, it's not something that's going to work for you. But you're going to notice again, the sole plate is fairly it's wide enough in the midfoot, and the forefoot is going to offer a fair amount of width as well. The toe box, you're going to notice it has that anatomic fit again, which Puma does like to use in the V. Well, it's not the V series anymore. Now it's the evoSPEED, but it does have that anatomic fit to it. It's not as extreme as it was on the V111s. Simply because it doesn't have that plastic lip on there, and it doesn't seem to be as pointy either. So there's no real learning curve or getting used to the shoe because of this anatomic fit. It's really not going to change the feel of the shoe, and I really did come to like this actual fit of the shoe. I'm glad Puma kept with it, simply because it allows the front of the shoe to really grab the tips of your toes. It really fits really nicely to really any shaped foot. Again, if you're familiar with the V series, I had that kind of issue with your second toe, which is a toe next to your big toe, was longer than your big toe. There might be some issues, but that doesn't seem to be the case with the evoSPEED here. And the overall fit of it's really good. As far as the Vapor goes, it's definitely going to be the most narrow fitting shoe of all 3 of these. You can notice that it's fairly narrow cut through the midfoot, and there's not a ton of material to wrap around your foot. It really likes to hug the inside of your foot. So if you have a really wide foot or even a overly flat foot, the instep's just going to be too tight for you, and it's never going to really feel comfortable. It's also going to have the narrowest toe box, as well as being the narrowest in the forefoot. And because these are all synthetic shoes, keep in mind they're not really going to stretch. So if you don't have that good fit right out of the box, it's not something that's really ever going to fit you properly. As far as the heels go, they all have very similar heels. The only issues that I had as far as slippage goes is going to happen in the adizero, simply because it's the lowest cut and the sole plate is the least flexible of the bunch. So some heel slippage may occur. It's something that could go away after a break-in period, but it's something that a lot of people still have issues with even later on. So definitely keep that in mind if your foot is maybe a little bit too narrow. As far as insoles go, they all have relatively the same insole. evoSPEED has probably the thickest of the bunch. The synthetic adizeros come with interchangeable insoles, and the Nike Mercurial Vapor comes with this pretty standard perforated insole that you get with all the Vapors they've had for a little while now. Seems to slide around a little bit, but nonetheless they're pretty much all the same, and nothing that's really going to change the overall performance or feel of the shoe. As far as the uppers go, these are all synthetic versions like I said earlier. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Nike really is leading the race as far as synthetics goes, simply because the synthetics they're producing is they're just fantastic quality, and really do seem to fit well. They've really got that shape down when it comes to synthetic, because synthetics don't really stretch, so that predetermined shape is really important, and Nike really seem to have gotten that shape really perfected over the years. This is the 8th version of the Mercurial, so they've had some time to really correct the mistakes they've had in the past, and they really have a really good shape on this particular shoe. You can notice that the synthetic itself is super thin. You can see my finger actually running through the inside of the shoe. Really thin upper, probably the closest to barefoot feel you're going to get from any kind of shoe. And given that this is a Clash version, you have this kind of faux leather finish on it, which really feels great. Gives the shoe, again, somewhat of a leather feel to it, but not really. Just that finishing touch. Really do like the overall feel of the shoe. You get a super thin tongue as well. Again, if you want more details as to how the shoe actually feels, go check out the full written review of the VIII. There'll be a link in the description of that as well. As far as the synthetic on the adizero goes, it is called a sprint skin. It's a single layer synthetic, and because the shoe doesn't seem to wrap your foot quite as tightly as the others, it still has that barefoot feel, but it doesn't have that super close to your foot feel that the evoSPEED and the VIII do have. That is probably why most people do prefer the actual leather version over the synthetic version. Although I really did like the synthetic version, I have to say it doesn't have that super tight to your foot feel. Like I said, the shape is somewhat off on the synthetic version of the adizero, which is why there was some issues with the overall feel of the shoe. Again, if you have that wider foot, that's really going to fill the shoe nicely. You're not going to have that issue. You're going to really like the touch. And even if you don't, the touch is still a really good shoe, don't get me wrong. But as far as the 3, it would definitely be my least favorite as far as synthetics goes. On the evoSPEED here, there's pretty much an all new synthetic from Puma here. It's not that padded synthetic that they had on the V series. It's that thin, almost vapor-like synthetic. It's fairly thin. You can see my finger running through. It's definitely a little bit thicker, but it's that same material that we've kind of seen from the Mercurials, where it's that single layer thin material. It has some softness to it, but there's really no cushion quality like the past Puma synthetics have had. And what's unique about the touch on this particular shoe is these little grip, kind of these little dimples on the outside. I really didn't think anything of it when I first saw the shoe in my hands and held it in my hands, but when you first put it on your feet and start touching the ball around, they almost act as somewhat of a rubber element and really do provide quite a bit of grip on the ball, which is something that you may or may not like. I didn't like it at first, but after using it for a little while, it seemed to dull down just a little bit, but it kind of has that somewhat of a rubber element feel to it. You can see with my finger running over it, you have that grippy noise, if that's any indication as to how much grip that these do provide. Again, it's not an overwhelming amount. It's not something that a rubber element is going to provide, but it's something a little bit unique, especially for such a thin upper like this. But there you go, guys. Again, the full written review for the VIII as well as the adizero synthetic are already up, so go ahead and check those out. The full written review for the evoSPEED is not up yet, so again, if you see an annotation here, I'll leave an annotation at the end of the video or something saying that the review is up. But in the meantime, if you want to check out the high quality pictures for all of these shoes, those links will be in the description. As far as sole plates go on these shoes, they're very different. At least the VIII is very different from the other two, sorry. You have this glass fiber sole plate, which is really flexible where it needs to be and really stiff where it needs to be, and it's really unique, very lightweight, and it manages to be nice and thin while still kind of eliminating a lot of stud pressure, if not all of the stud pressure on the shoe. You can get away with wearing these shoes on hard ground while still avoiding stud pressure, which is pretty amazing considering that the studs are fairly long and you're pretty much standing on 6 studs as a firm ground stud pattern. Again, definitely want to avoid using on turf, and it's not something that I would recommend using on hard ground at all, simply because there aren't enough studs and you're really not going to get the best traction that you could get, especially on turf. Seriously, guys, a lot of questions about this shoe for use on turf. I would strongly not recommend using this shoe on turf, simply because there just aren't enough studs under your feet, and it's not going to be something that's stable or even good to use on turf, period. Again, given that you're on firm ground like this is meant to be used on, the 2 heel studs, which is somewhat unique, really do a good job of digging into the ground. You're going to notice that these 4 studs really, they're positioned in the push-off points on the shoe, or at least what I would call the push-off points. So they really do a good job of digging into the ground, and you can really feel the grip under your feet. Like I said, the sole plate is thin, so it does eliminate some of the stud pressure, but it still leaves that feel for the studs under your feet, which gives you kind of an added element of grip to the shoe, which is something that I really like. Again, I talk in more detail about this in the full written review, so go ahead and check that out. As far as the stud pattern on the adizero, it's something that we've seen implemented on all of the Adidas shoes now. They're these triangular studs. They're fairly on the long side as far as the firm ground stud pattern goes. So again, not one that I would really like using on turf. It's not something that I don't recommend on turf. It's just not one that I personally like to use on turf, simply because I find the studs to be a little bit long. But the idea here is to create a combination between a conical stud and a bladed stud. And I feel like they're somewhat successful in this, but I just don't think that there's enough studs under your feet still to really provide that all-around grip. I would definitely call the adizero stud pattern more of a conical stud pattern rather than a bladed stud pattern. It's still going to provide plenty of grip given that you're on a firm ground. Again, a hard ground stud pattern, I wouldn't say that this is the best, but it's something that's going to provide plenty of grip. A lot of people do like this stud pattern, which is why it has made the adizero so successful, and is also why Adidas has put it on all of their shoes now. The 11 Pro as well as the Predator do have pretty much this stud pattern on it. So overall, a lot of people do like it, and they have used it and are definitely big fans of it. As far as the Soleplate goes, this is called the Sprint Frame 2.0, simply because it has these harder edges, slightly stiffer plastic, and you also have the slot for the miCoach, which again is not included with the shoe. It's a sold separately thing. Provides a solid amount of stiffness to the shoe and does a good job of eliminating any kind of stud pressure. But keep in mind, it's not the most flexible stud pattern on the market, especially when bending your foot. Like I talked about a little earlier about the actual upper of the shoe fitting really nice to your foot. You can notice that when you do flex the shoe on this particular on the adizero anyways, you're gonna have the most kind of folds in the actual synthetic than you will out of the Vapor, then the evoSPEED. This is going to happen with the adizero. It's just how they made it. It's not a design flaw. It's just that the overall shape of the shoe just isn't right yet. But as far as the stud pattern on the evoSPEED goes, again, you're with an all new stud pattern, all new sole plate with this shoe from Puma. You're going to notice that you have this dual flex X kind of in this in the forefoot here. It's a thinned out section of the sole plate. Provides plenty of flexibility. That's generally why it is there. And as you can see, it's very adizero-esque as far as the actual sole plate goes. Very much like the Sprint Frame. You have the heel counter that kind of is joined in, but you have these cutouts to kind of shed some weight on the shoe. But as far as the stud pattern goes, again, it's all new as well. You have this combination of conical studs here in the front with the 2 blades here, and then the rest are conical studs. And then, of course, the 4 blades in the back. Overall, I do like this stud pattern. The studs aren't overly long. It's one that you can use on firm ground. It's going to work okay for turf, although I'm not entirely convinced that the shoe will hold up all that well on turf. Neither will any kind of ultra lightweight shoes. And it's not one that I would really recommend for hard ground, even though the studs are a little bit longer, simply because the actual sole plate itself is fairly thin. So if you're going to be playing on firm ground, this is a stud pattern that's going to really work great. It provides the kind of the best of both worlds as far as conical studs, which will provide plenty of kind of side to side turning motion, while the blades are going to provide plenty of outright grip when pushing off, which is great. Again, this is probably the most flexible of the sole plates, which is something that I really like, and really gives the shoe a comfortable feel when running, and also takes away from some of the break-in time on the evoSPEED. Considering that these are all the 3 most popular ultra lightweight speed boots on the market, I figured I would weigh them all in real life for you, just to get an idea of what they actually do weigh in person, because sometimes the listed weights are something you really can't go by. Keep in mind, these are all the same size shoe. So right in real time, I have the Vapor 8 here, and this weighs in at 6.7 ounces. So again, just under that 7 ounce mark, which is again is really lightweight in your hands. Also keep in mind that all of these shoes feel pretty much the same on your feet as well as in your hand. There's really not a huge weight difference as far as what you can actually feel, let alone what the scale says. This one says 6.35 ounces, and that is an adizero in synthetic. So I also have the comfort insole in there, so definitely keep that in mind. It is technically the lightest of the bunch, but again, in your hands, it really doesn't feel all that way. And then here's the evoSPEED, which weighs in at 6.8 ounces. And to be completely honest, the evoSPEED in my hands feels the lightest, but in reality, I guess you could say it actually is the heaviest of the 3. Again, the weight difference is very minimal, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 ounces. It's definitely not something you're going to notice on your feet. It's less than the weight of the laces, so keep that in mind. Again, I'll link an annotation in the top left corner to the soccer shoes and weight video, so go ahead and check that out if you haven't done so already. It's kind of some interesting information as far as soccer shoes and weight, so go ahead and check that out. If you guys want to check out the full written review for all of these shoes, apart from the evoSPEED, it's not up yet. I'll leave an annotation here when it is up, so you can check that out. There'll be links in the description to all the review pages where you'll find high quality pictures, the full written review, as well as buy it now links with the best prices online. So go ahead and check that out if that does interest you. And any questions you guys have related to the video, go ahead and leave a comment down below, guys. And any other questions not related to the video, go ahead and check out my Facebook page. Go ahead and give that a like. Any new content that comes up on my Facebook page generally happens there before it goes up on YouTube. So if you want to get an idea of what's coming on YouTube before it actually comes, my Facebook page is a good place to go see that. So it's kind of like a sneak peek thing if you haven't been there. A lot of you guys who have been on my Facebook do know that. So if you're interested in that kind of information, go ahead and check out my Facebook page. Again, that link is in the description. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.